And this particular client called me up and said, "Hey, Bill, I really want to sell everything." And I know that that's a terrible thing to do. I mean, they'll actually voice this. Like, I know that this is absolutely the worst thing that I can be doing, but I have enough money to retire. I just need to not take losses. Like, so I want to sell everything and just get out and park my cash somewhere where it's guaranteed and blah blah blah. I want to do that. And I said, well, I don't have to tell you how bad of an idea that is. You've just voiced that to me, that it's a bad idea. So let's couch this for 3 to 5 days. Let's come back and talk about it later. Let's just set the emotion aside for a second. And let's talk about it later. And we came back 3 to 5 days later. And lo and behold, that same client came back and said, I was actually thinking about buying more. I was like, we need to, what are you talking about? We're back, baby.
Welcome to another episode of Money Therapy. And I'm Brandon Chasteen.
I'm Bill McGill.
And we're going to get started. So what are we going to talk about today?
Dude, we are going to talk about the Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
How to get rich through market cycles.
Yes.
Right. So first of all, what is that even? What are we trying to do here by capturing the audience, by saying that little tagline? What are we really going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about, investing. We're going to talk about staying the course. We're going to talk about the media a little bit and maybe some emotions around the media when we see, things on the screen that make us want to do things that aren't typically, history teaches us is not in the best interest of our finances. So we're going to talk about all the topics surrounding that when people want to jump off the roller coaster, things that we do to pull them back in and make them, have people realize what the right decision to do is based on history, facts, and their own plan.
Yeah, I think a couple of things that you said that jump out to me that I want to make sure we hit on is the thing that you just said, jumping off the roller coaster.
Right.
So I want to get into the human behavior side of how oftentimes we are wired as human beings to avoid things that's going to hurt us and to seek out things that's going to give us safety and pleasure. And sometimes, talking about the roller coasters, we might think, I should have never gotten off, or never gotten on this roller coaster. But you would never actually undo your safety harness and jump off the roller coaster while it was going, full speed upside down or whatever.
Yeah.
Because that ultimately that's going to hurt way worse than the nerve-wracking fear that you're feeling while you're flipping upside down or whatever. So
yeah. We're also going to talk about how a lot of times that decision, I don't think we realize how often we realize we're just going with the crowd, and when we're trying to make those decisions, how often we look to what the crowd's doing to infer on whether we're making a good decision or not. And a lot of times in investing, it can be the exact opposite of what you want to do.
Yeah. So let's jump in. Market cycles are history repeats itself, so to speak, right? We hear that adage all the time. When it comes to investing our money and growing our money over time, I think it's important to first understand that there are these forces behind what is really going on, and that is economic cycles, business cycles, and market cycles. And they never overlap 100%. So sometimes you can have a market that is increasing because of the market cycle, even though you're in an economic cycle where the economy might be slowing down. And you might have in a slowing economy certain businesses that do well and certain businesses that do bad. So it's really important to understand that that nugget of knowledge, if you will, is that inside of our investment decision making, when we're trying to ultimately achieve some sort of financial success, whether it be a specific goal or just general wealth building for future money, we have to understand that we can make a really, really good decision to invest in a company based on their business. But even though we're making a really good decision based on the business and based on the longevity of the business, the market cycle that we might be in might cause that stock or investment to come down.
Yeah.
Or the market cycle that we're in may prevent that investment from increasing, right? So I think it's just really important, because what we're going to actually talk about is staying the course.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like what we always tell people, what we do for our clients, what we do for our money, and what we always tell people that they need to do if they're going to do this stuff on their own, is you got to do your homework.
Yeah.
But when we do our homework, we can do all the homework that we can possibly do, and we can do really good research and come to a really good decision. But it doesn't mean that, like, just because the investment isn't performing right now the way we thought it should, it doesn't mean that all our research was bad.
Correct.
It just means maybe that the business cycle or the market cycle or the economic cycle that we're in isn't agreeing with the performance of that particular investment. So staying the course.
I think one of the things we should also try and do in this episode is to give the listener maybe some terminology that they're going to hear a lot from the media and from us and things like that. And we'll do that as we go. But people, they're going to hear, business cycle, economic cycles, the stock market cycle, all these, different terms. They're also going to hear, maybe leading indicators and lagging indicators. And so as we talk about kind of the general concept of, buying low, selling high, jumping off the roller coaster, we're going to throw in these little terms on and try and give examples on, hey, this is why they say the stock market, for instance, a lot of people say the stock market is a leading indicator. And so maybe we should go into examples at some point and say, this is why they say it's a leading indicator, or why, and which can lead to, hey, we picked this stock, but what you just said, the economy is doing something else. And so they're in different cycles right now. And that can definitely cause an effect. And then I think it's also important, one of the phrases that comes to mind is, people always say, well, this time is different. And one of my favorite sayings to that is, it's not different. The only thing that's different are the elements or the parts leading up to where we are today. If you look back on history and the stock market, which again, we'll talk about a little bit, that gives us incredible insight into the future. Not always, obviously, but yeah, a lot of the instances are different, and we'll kind of highlight that with some of the things going on today. But it's important to remember that a lot of these things are cyclical, and you don't have to necessarily time them out, but you have to understand sometimes what cycle we're in.
Yeah. And I want to be really clear too, because what we aren't doing is suggesting that you use staying the course as an excuse to endure a decision based off of like bad homework. Right. And also what I think is really important in this is that sometimes because of economic cycles or because of business cycles, companies become bad over time. Mm-hmm. There's a great story. We might have even mentioned it on past episode, but I talked about the competition between Apple and Microsoft back when Apple had first launched the iPod. Mm-hmm. And Microsoft was doing Microsoft things before that, but then they saw the revenue that Apple was generating because Apple was doing Apple things. And Microsoft saw an end to get into that market. They created the Microsoft Zune.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that.
I remember it.
I actually had one.
Yeah.
And it was I enjoyed it, but Zune took Microsoft away from doing Microsoft things. So because of a business cycle and because of competition, Microsoft actually kind of lost their way a little bit, and it really hurt their revenue and actually set them back like a couple years. They ended up like getting rid of that segment of business. They no longer have the Zune, as far as I understand. But in that process, they went through a business cycle and they went through a market cycle and became worse. So if I was an investor back then, staying the course does not mean ignoring evidence that something we decided on before is no longer the same. It's the truth has changed.
Yeah.
So we're definitely not excusing bad homework.
No.
We're actually encouraging through this to do your homework and do it well. And if you realize a decision that you made in the past was based on something that is no longer true, there is a point in time where you make the decision to exit an investment. But the critical piece here is you're going to exit an investment based off of fact and not fear.
Right.
Right? You're going to enter an investment based on fact and not greed.
Yeah.
And so that's really, really important. So we can, I think everybody, like, and I've said this before, I could walk down Main Street right outside the front door of our office.
Yeah.
And ask everyone, tell me a truth about financial, like building wealth through investments.
Right.
And I think almost everybody would understand and know, they would say something to the effect of buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody gets that. Mm-hmm. And I think if I say that to my clients, if I say that to people in general, if I'm saying that even listeners right now, they're like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Knowing something intellectually and knowing it to the point of proper application in spite of our own human behavior, two totally different things.
Yeah.
And so, I wrote down a couple like examples of, I think other times that this comes to light, right? So we're recording today. It's a Friday.
Yeah.
And I told you last night, right? I was like, I cannot wait till Saturday because I'm going to spend most of the day sitting on my couch, just relaxing. Is being sedentary, is being lazy like something that's healthy for me long term? No. Right? But I'm going to probably choose to be a little bit lazy because I'm tired and I perceive emotion, like that's what I need. And because it's the near term thing, I know it's probably not good for my long term health, right? Getting up, exercising, like taking care of things, being outside. These are all good things for me. But I'm going to make a bad choice, right? Like I'm going to make a choice for right now because I feel right now that I need to just be lazy.
Yeah.
Another time is like sometimes we go to McDonald's. What'd you say you bought yesterday at McDonald's?
I don't want to talk about that.
Fitness Bill over here.
It doesn't need to be discussed.
Yeah.
It's a moment of weakness.
So, but sometimes, right? Like sometimes you're like, man, like this is my opportunity to eat a trashy meal.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it because it's going to feel good.
I took full advantage.
And we do that in spite of knowing we know.
Yeah.
We should probably not eat fast food. And if we do, we should really control ourselves.
Yeah.
But that's not what we do.
No.
Right? Because sometimes we want to eat a trashy meal because it just feels right.
Yeah.
Right? I can think of, nicotine, tobacco, right? I know that nicotine is not good for me. I know that smoking is not good for me, but every once in a while, I really enjoy a cigar.
Yeah.
Right? The list goes on. I mean,
well, and multiply that by 100 times when you're talking about people's money and investment.
Right. So sometimes we know, like I think the point is there's so much emotion that goes into our decision making.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that we're always going to overweight the emotion that is most dangerous to us today, even though that perceived danger is so inconsequential in a negative way. But what is consequential is feeding into that could derail our future completely, right? If I give like I want trashy food, I want to go to McDonald's, I'm going to do it, right? Because I feel right now that's what I need. I deserve it, or it's just going to feel good. I mean, people do that to, just escape some stress and stuff going, like, right? We do that stuff. But the reality is I know that is not helping me live a long and healthy life.
Yeah.
But that's far away.
Right.
This is now. When it comes to our money, when everybody else has these wins, right? When everybody else is buying some real estate, I want to get on the real estate train.
Turning it into an Airbnb.
Right. I want to get on the real estate train because everybody else is doing it and everybody else is telling me all these great outcomes. When everybody's buying crypto, I want to buy crypto because everybody else is doing it and everybody's talking about all the money they're making.
Sure.
Right? When everybody's buying a technology company, I want to buy the technology company. Like, we stop thinking about our own long-term goals, our outcomes, and what do? We know we shouldn't buy, and if there's high demand, everything is high. We know we shouldn't do that, but what are we doing?
Yeah.
We're doing it anyway. Because right now, this is the feeling, and I feel like I'm going to miss out. I feel like I'm going to lose an opportunity. On the flip side, if everything's coming down, I feel like I'm going to lose it all.
Yeah.
And we forget all the intellectual things that we just know.
Yeah.
And we feed the near term. We seek out safety, just like we're hardwired to do as human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll let you talk, but the thing to wrap this up, like in this thought at least, is it's not about changing how we feel.
Yeah.
You are always going to feel fear. You are always going to feel greed. You are always, like, not always, but at certain points in your life, you're going to feel fearful. You're going to feel greedy. You're going to feel like you're missing out. You're going to feel like you need to seek immediate shelter and safety, right? And sometimes, like, you're always going to have these emotions. So it's not about eliminating the feeling.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that emotions have no consequences.
Yeah.
You can feel it, but once we act out of emotion,
Yes.
there's potential dangers. And that's what we're going to try to solve today, at least from me,
Yeah.
is convincing people, convincing myself, convincing you, convincing listeners, you can have the emotion, but there needs to be some sort of like fence barrier to say, okay, I have the emotion, don't immediately have an action, a response, have a pause.
Yeah. So I got two stories that popped into mind. I think sometimes teaching and relating to people, stories can do a lot for that. And so I got two stories. One is, of a client, and then the other is a buddy of mine, or somebody I know. And then I want to give like a little piece of advice, some advice my father gave me a long time ago, that I use in these instances when I'm feeling rushed or feeling like I'm going to miss out, or like, oh man, this thing just came on the market. I need to get it now, or that new TV or whatever it is. So the first story, my client had, money invested, and the market came down about 25% in a very, very short period of time. And this was going through the pandemic, really, when everything pulled back about 25%. And this particular client called me up and said, "Hey, Bill, I really want to sell everything." And I know that that's a terrible thing to do. I mean, they'll actually voice this. Like, I know that this is absolutely the worst thing that I can be doing, but I have enough money to retire. I just need to not take losses. Like, so I want to sell everything and just get out and park my cash somewhere where it's guaranteed and blah, blah, blah. I want to do that. And I said, well, I don't have to tell you how bad of an idea that is. You've just voiced that to me, that it's a bad idea. So let's couch this for 3 to 5 days. Let's come back and talk about it later. Let's just set the emotion aside for a second, and let's talk about it later. And we came back 3 to 5 days later, and lo and behold, that same client came back and said, I was actually thinking about buying more. I was like, we need to, what are you talking about? Right. So obviously puts me in an interesting position. I'm dealing with somebody that has high emotions. They're at a very, very pivotal point in their life. They've worked hard their entire life, and you can lock up your wins right now. Right. And you don't have to ride anything down or up. You don't have to ride that roller coaster, right? You could jump off right now. Right. And long story short of it, I convinced this client, we're doing the right things. Here's what we're doing. Let's ride this out, because what we're talking about, what we're looking at, I think things are going to be okay. You know, history tells us that, you know, the American economy typically does pretty well. Let's just relax a little bit. And it ended up being about a $500,000 decision in the end, because the market came back. We got back everything and then some, you know, and it was the difference. Instead of being, you know, it was a huge decision. It was pivotal. It was a $500,000 decision. And afterwards, they were very thankful.
Yeah.
Thank you for keeping me in the seat. And I was scared, and thank you. And it's like, no problem. That's why I'm here. That's what you pay somebody with a third, you know, an outside opinion who's not as attached emotionally to what's going on. You know, I'm not emotionally attached to that money, right? So you take that example, and then the other story I'm going to tell is somebody who bought, you know, they bought a particular investment, and this particular investment went crazy, went wild, and you know, he did very, very well. And then this particular investment, as of recently, has pulled back quite a bit and is about half what it was at its peak. And I went to him and I said, you know, what do you think about that? You know, are you upset that you didn't sell at the top? You know, and he said, well, I'm not really that upset. And I said, why? He said, because I bought it here. You know, I've made good money on it. And yeah, it's not at the peak, but I bought it for the long term anyway.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's down half from it was at the peak, but I'm still doing really great. And that's almost the case. Anybody who's been investing for a long period of time, this goes back to the historical point. Anybody who's investing for over 30 years, that's their story, is I've bought it here. I've made good money. Yeah, it may not, I could have sold it at the peak here, at every peak along the way, and, you know, been 10 times richer. But my investments have grown over time.
I wonder,
and that mentality between those two stories, I mean, those guys are in very similar positions in terms of the money movement, right? Very, very similar. Same roller coaster ride, but their mentalities are completely different.
were both of these individuals a little bit older?
One is older, one's getting to retirement age, and one is like our age.
Okay. Because I just wonder too, like you were talking about this, and like back in the day, right? You had this, like, you didn't have the internet. Right. And so I just wonder, like, you know, if I would have bought some stock in some company back in 1970, I don't know, maybe even before that, like, how much would I have checked on that? Right? The information, the data available.
Yeah.
So, like, it was probably simpler. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it might have been simpler to have a long-term investment mindset than we do today.
I think it absolutely was.
That's just interesting. It's just something I thought of.
Well, and think about it, you know, every time, you know, if you have a stock portfolio, I know plenty of people that have notifications sent to their phone every time there's a movement with the stock. It's like, okay, so now instead of opening a monthly statement and going, I went down a little bit, or hey, I made some money this month, you know, let's keep adding
every
to
day.
it. Now it's 10 times a day that you're getting notified about little movements and macro movements, and you're 10 times more likely, because of that information coming in, to emotionally react to that. And I think as financial professionals, we're battling that. The last thing I wanted to say, to give a little, maybe some practical advice to listeners out there, the one piece of advice that I listen to from my dad, that I listen to pretty much every day of my life, is an opportunity of a lifetime comes around once a day. And that's so true. You know, so many clients I've talked to, and me myself, you know, oh man, I remember when I was a kid, I was like, or I was young 20s, I'm like, oh man, I should try and buy this house, and blah, blah, blah. I had no money, you know, no business buying a house, right? But I was like, I should really, you know, I could do this, and then I could do that, I could do that. My dad's like, an opportunity of a lifetime comes around once a day. And you know how our economy, I mean, everyone's trying to sell you something at a return.
Right.
And few pieces of advice have been more true than that piece right there. And I think that in our effort to kind of talk to the client and talk to the listener about staying on the roller coaster in that market cycle, I think that's a key piece of advice is, listen, when you hear about on TV, man, this stock is going crazy, you got to get in it right now, and probably too late because you already heard it on the TV. But an opportunity of a lifetime comes around once a day.
Cool. Let's take a quick break. We're going to listen to our sponsors for just a second, and we'll come back and wrap up the show.
A few years ago, I had the privilege of working with a wonderful couple that had big goals and an incredible work ethic. They made sacrifices and achieved tremendous success and even got to enjoy an early retirement. But tragically, the wife passed away after just 6 months of that retirement life. This experience shook me to the core and led me to reevaluate how I approach financial planning with my clients. I developed an ideology based on 5 pillars of fitness and happiness, and in no particular order, the pillars of finance, faith, physical and emotional well-being, and mental health. While I'm not a doctor, priest, or psychologist, I believe in the importance of addressing all of these pillars holistically alongside financial fitness. A few months ago, I decided to prioritize my own physical health. I focused on everything from eating well to sleeping better. However, I really struggled to find the right motivation to become a regular at the gym. That's when I reached out to an old friend and fitness professional, Sean Rodman. Sean has been a warfighter in the U.S. Army for 20 years. While serving, he acquired all kinds of fitness certificates and was designated to lead fitness programs for our nation's bravest warriors. Not just the fittest ones heading off to war, but also those injured and needing rehabilitation. When he retired, he started an online fitness company, Parabellum Fitness. He builds workout programs tailored to you, your goals, and even considers your old injuries. He also switches things up from week to week or month to month, so nothing ever gets old. In just a few months, I've experienced better sleep, improved mobility, increased energy, weight loss, and freedom from my old injuries. While I want my clients to achieve incredible financial success, I believe it's all for nothing if you cannot enjoy it. Go check out parabellumfitnessllc.com. That's parabellumfitnessllc.com. Follow them on Instagram or TikTok, really any social media platform. Go follow Parabellum Fitness and reach out to Sean. Set up your first month of programming, mention Money Therapy, and get 25% off. Let's not lose sight of all 5 pillars. Together, let's focus on health and happiness and put energy into creating the best possible life we can. After all, we only get one.
All right. So, one of like if you get our weekly emails,
Yeah.
the email the drawing on this week is simply just this line chart that goes up and down, and at the peaks it says buy more / greed, right? And then at the bottom it says fear / sell. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the line graph it says repeat until you go broke, right?
Right.
When I listen to people speak that have done well with managing money, so Warren Buffett's or all these like 70, 80-year-old like investment tycoons that have gone from, immigrant family to billionaire status in their lifetime. One thing that I see as true is it's never about the world's best research, because there's no such thing. It's never about a perfect decision, because there's no such thing. It's always about, did they act opposite of everyone else at the best possible times? And typically it's the people that in the middle of a sell-off, those are when you go shopping when everyone else is selling, that's how you win. And when you go selling when everyone else is buying, that's when you win. But it's so hard to be that isolated, especially when we're dealing with our livelihood.
Right.
Right now, we're in an environment where every single day I have a client calling me wanting to talk about investment properties.
Yeah.
I'm not here to say that's a good or bad decision for anyone, right? Because everyone's situation is very, very unique.
Sure.
But what I am saying is typically when I start getting calls every day about the same thing, it's like, wait a second. When did all of these families that I serve all become like land barons.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like, and we could, it's not just investment properties, but we could rewind 2 years ago when everybody was a cryptocurrency expert.
Everybody.
Rewind, a few years before when everyone was a tech sector expert, right?
Yeah.
Like look at the .com bubble,
Yeah.
right? Like look at all these things where everybody all of a sudden wants the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, man, like, how do we actually do the opposite of this?
Yeah.
Because right now, Wayne Gretzky said it. He was like, somebody asked him, like, how are you so great at hockey?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not great because I go to where the puck is. He said, I'm great because I go to where the puck is going to be.
Yeah.
Right? Somehow we have to learn that when we start hearing everybody talking about the same thing, first of all, they're probably not telling the total truth.
I can guarantee that.
They're not talking about their own like fearful emotions or the consequences of things, right? What they're talking about is all the good stuff, because nobody can very, very few people are going to come out and be like, yeah, I made this investment decision and it was terrible.
Yeah.
Like now I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Right. Very, very few people. Right now we're in this really weird place in the stock market where there's a extraordinarily small amount of companies representing almost all of the year-to-date returns.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a very, very lopsided thing, and I have people telling me like, well, my neighbor's talking about how they're making all this money, and it's like, well, either one of two things is got to be true. Either they're not telling you the truth,
Yeah.
or they're telling you the truth because they have an over-concentrated portfolio and they're not diversified.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not appropriate for you to get that concentrated. It's too risky. It doesn't match who you are. So
Yeah.
stop worrying about what everybody else is doing, and let's try to focus on what makes you successful.
Yeah.
And what gets you to your goal.
Yeah.
But right now, if everybody's chasing the same 7 stocks, guess what we should probably be doing? Selling those 7 stocks.
Yeah.
And if everybody's ignoring all this other stuff,
Yeah.
what should we probably be doing? Buying up that. And to just drive that home in the email, said, can you imagine going down, or can you imagine doing this in another setting? Picture walking into an Audi dealership and saying, I need that new A6. And the salesperson says, oh my gosh, you're in luck. We just marked them up 30%.
Yeah.
So you said, what's your response? Awesome. I'll take No, you wouldn't do that. You'd be like, wait a second. I went to take my truck to get some maintenance done on it recently.
Yeah.
And while at the dealership, and while I was there, they were like, hey, we could buy your truck from you and get you into this brand new 2023 or 2024, whatever year like they're on at the dealership, the new ones, the brand new ones that just came through. Are you interested? And I was like, well, let's look at the new truck. I'll take a look. I got to sit here for an hour anyway. And so I went and
Which they were planning on.
yeah. Oh yeah. So I go and look at the new truck.
Like, quick, put a knife in his tire real quick. Keep him here another 2 hours.
I don't love the new truck, but one thing that absolutely made me run, like I laughed at the salesman, is they had a dealer markup. It was like dealer convenience fee or something. It was like a deal, like it was specific, but it was $25,000 of just like, it wasn't like dealer upgrades. Like they had done a bunch of stuff to the truck after they received it. It wasn't like they didn't put on a new, lift or aggressive tire. It was just like, hey, right now, new vehicle supply is low. A lot of people are still wanting to buy new vehicles.
Yeah.
And so so we're just going to charge an extra $25,000 just because we can.
Isn't that crazy?
And I was like, what's this? And he was like, well, he said something about the, like local demand market adjustment is what he called it. He was like, it's the local market adjustment. And I was like, local market adjustment? Like who actually gets this money? And he was like, well, the dealership gets it. He's like, it's not me. I'm like, I'm sure it's not you.
Yeah.
I was like, but why would I pay an extra $25,000 beyond what the manufacturer said I should buy it for? And he was like, well, we don't have that many in. I was like, well, then stop telling me you'll buy my truck to sell me one.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short,
Yeah.
if everybody's wanting to buy that truck and to where they can mark it up, 25 grand, like it was like a 50, almost like, I don't know, 40, 30% increase.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah. A couple quotes come to mind. The one I love is, and this was from a financial advisor to us as financial advisors. And he said, I'm in the only industry in the world that people, when there's a sale, they run in the opposite direction.
That's true.
So that's one. And then, of course, the Warren Buffett classic, which is, be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. And I think if you keep that in mind, you can dodge a lot of bullets.
Yeah.
I mean, when people are on the TV going, oh man, things we're down in the dumps and, America's going to evaporate and all this stuff. Like, yeah, maybe you should be looking to buy. Or, 2008, how I know that you and I wish we had a, pile of money in 2008.
Yeah.
When
I mean,
everything
and
cratered,
that's the thing is like everybody says that.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, man, well, I wish I would have bought Apple when it was, or I wish I would have bought Micro, or I wish I would have. But then when it's down there again, guess what?
Yeah.
You can't find the people that said they were going to buy. Oh, no, I'm not buying that right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Anyway,
They're nowhere to be found. Yeah.
You got any other thoughts?
Yeah. Just, I think the biggest part of this whole thing that we're trying to get across, I think we've thrown a lot at the listener today, but I think what we're trying to get across is a theme that we've stuck to throughout all these lessons, which is stick to your game plan. Don't jump off the roller coaster. Diversify. Buy high quality things. Don't be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. Keep yourself in check and have the right mentality about investing.
Yeah.
Learn to laugh at fads and learn to, when you feel that missing out thing because everybody else is doing this.
#FOMO.
#FOMO. Just realize in that moment, if this is, I would encourage everybody to think about it. When you get that feeling in your chest of, oh man, I'm missing out, an opportunity of a lifetime comes around once a day, and start looking for, okay, where's everybody going to go? Where's the puck going to go now?
Yeah.
Right? Not where the puck is, where is it going to go?
Yeah.
And I think you're going to feel a lot more confident with your investing, especially when it's in tune with your game plan in your specific situation. So again, it's balancing others' perception with your reality and making sure that you're doing the right things for you and your family.
Love it. And I will just say that I think, the point that I want to drive home is it's okay to feel it. It is okay to feel whatever you're feeling.
It's normal.
It's not okay to act out of pure emotion.
Right.
When you're on the roller coaster, you can regret getting on the ride. You can be terrified of the next big loop. You can, I don't know, maybe be overly excited that you're on that ride. But what you don't want to do is unlock your safety harness, right? Changing that strategy in the middle of some high or some low is probably the most catastrophic mistake that we can make, even though it might feel like we're making ourselves safer. The hardest thing to do in the middle of a downturn is sit on your hands.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're not doing anything. It's hard to not take action. But sometimes the choice of not taking action is the best choice. It's actually doing the most for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I would say that the most success you're going to have is partnering with someone along that ride, because there's times that I do it. There's times where I'm like, man, did I make the right decision? And only because I have the right people around me do I stand by my guns.
Yeah.
And I don't panic and sell out of fear or buy out of greed.
Yeah.
I don't chase things because everyone else is doing it. I have that accountability. So whether you're hiring a professional or whether you just have somebody close to you that's willing to help, I say do that. So,
Well, and create that community around you. Brandon sends out this Sunday series email to specifically that. It brings the notes to you before the episode, before we get a chance to talk about it. But it also gets you in the Harpeth Wealth community, which puts you in the mindset, similar-minded people around these things. So go to harpethwealthpartners.com. Both of our emails are under there. If you need to contact us, go to Spotify, go to YouTube, go to Amazon Music, listen to the podcast, get these thoughts in your head, because we're trying to not only educate, but we're also trying to coach people here.
Cool. Thanks for sitting with us. Hope you learned something. And again, just challenge yourself, practice it the next time you just want to eat a trashy meal or, do something. Just tell yourself, hey, I know that's not healthy for the long term. That'll make me feel better right now, but not later. And let's start acting out in a way that is doing the best for us later, not necessarily right now. And that's all.
Adios.
We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.